And this is going to be Recycling 201, Best Practices Preventing Waste Corral Contamination for BellCoHo. And I want to start with 3 encouraging principles that guide my efforts. Eldridge Cleaver was one of many that would say either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And that was a big mantra of my mother's. And so that infected me fairly early. And I've always tried to do something that makes me feel like I'm part of the solution, at least to be less of a part of the problem. And that guides my efforts. I also really believe in acting locally as you think globally, and locally means your own backyard. And you really want to clean up your own backyard, I guess. If you can't ask other nations and other parts of the world to be doing something that you're not doing yourself. So I really try to act locally. And then I also believe the Gandhian method, a paraphrase of one of his messages was to be the change you want to see. Because you can't always know what the destination is, but you can act now to improve the odds that it will change the way you want it to by being that change. So I really rest on those 3 and more, but those 3 in particular for this dimension. But there's also 3 distressing principles that guide my efforts. The first of which is that landfills are toxic and they do not compost. That's a misconception that people think, oh, it's just composting out there. No, no, no. Methane goes up in the air, toxins go down into the water tables and into the nearby streams. It's just a scourge on the earth, landfills. And they're expanding, of course, because there's more and more garbage. Secondly, wasted food is just wrong to my mind. And unfortunately, 40% of American landfills are filled with wasted food, just a horrible waste. And so I try to keep as much out of the landfills as possible. That's my goal anyway. And I use the word landfill very intentionally instead of garbage or trash because it most accurately describes where those items are going. And I encourage you to start substituting landfill for garbage and trash and see how it makes you feel and see what kind of reaction it gets from other people, because it more accurately depicts what's happening and what you're doing. And the stuff doesn't just go away. It goes to a landfill. The third one is that contaminated recycling is an enemy, and it undoes many of the good efforts that we try to make toward recycling, because if it's contaminated, it usually doesn't get recycled. It gets put in the landfill. So that's why this is an important issue for me. And what recycling contamination means is that when the wrong items or the right items prepared the wrong way are put in your curbside recycling bin, or in our case, toters in our waste corrals. So it's the wrong items or the right items prepared the wrong way. And we'll get into a bunch of that as we go along here. Contamination being this serious issue because it reduces efficiency, destroys value of the recycling materials, and leads to even greater waste because contaminated recycling has to be landfilled. There are many ways to reduce and avoid contamination of recycling. The most important one is education, and I applaud your willingness to sit here with me for this hour and get some more education, perhaps. I hope you're going to learn a few things from this. It's been a sort of crusade of mine that I've paid attention and tried to deepen my own awareness about it. It's a never-ending moving target in some ways, so it's a challenge. But I applaud your continuing efforts on this in this regard. And some of the common items that contaminate our waste corral recycling bins, and this is from the state toxics website. You see in the box there plastic bags, plastic wrap and films, any liquids, foods, soiled packaging, garden hoses, believe it or not, wire hangers, diapers are incredibly popular to throw in recycling bins, believe it or not. Maybe not here, but on the curbside, that's a big problem, they tell me. Electronics and light bulbs and batteries and any kind of foam, and some of these items can be recycled separately, but just not in a commingled bin. And we'll get into some more of that later as well. And the contamination notice up there is not from Bellingham, which does not do this. They do not issue violation notices, but some communities have started doing that, and the curbside people will just not pick up. And if we did do curbside, what they do is they will leave behind things that are obviously improperly prepared or in the wrong places. They'll just leave behind. But I don't think SSC, who I'll introduce in a moment, our pickup company, I don't think they actually issue notices like that. But some communities do. And I think contamination is a kind of littering, really, if you think about it. And behind each and every piece of littered debris or contaminated recycling, there is a human face. These things didn't get there by accident. At a critical decision point, somebody somewhere mishandled this, either thoughtlessly, most often thoughtlessly, or in some cases deliberately. And the litany of litter is as varied as the products available in the global marketplace, but it all shares a common origin, which is us. We humans are the ones that litter and contaminate our recycling. And so we are not only the problem, we are also the solution. Don't let your good recycling go to waste, and be sure to empty, rinse, and sort it. That's the key. Perhaps the most problematic contaminating misplacement that I've noticed here at co-housing, and I think is true in many places, is food residue on the plastic, the paper, and the cardboard recycling. None. No food residue. We don't want any food residue. That's bad news on your recycling. Better to landfill it or clean it. And certainly peanut butter jars are a challenge to clean. I've figured out how to do it, and it takes a little while, but it's doable. And clamshell, takeout containers need to be rinsed more thoroughly than this one, for instance. Or else, if you're just not into it, just landfill it. If you don't have the time or energy to do it, don't put it in the recycling, because then it contaminates a whole load. Better to when in doubt, throw it out. Although landfill is the better word to use. Here's another example of something I found in our plastic toters. This Listerine can on the left, totally disgusting, and I rinsed it out once, and it turned into the thing on the right. It would have been so easy for whoever did that to rinse it out. So it's a thought process also that you have to enter into, of rinsing out these things before you put them in the toters. And then paper goods, in the number of times that I found in the mixed paper, food soiled paper plates like this and other things, just amazing. They need to go into the Food Plus city compost, which they can do. And any kind of paper can go into the Food Plus container, especially if it's got food on it. So remember that too. And anyone can do this. It's very easy, and the thing we want to do is try to avoid overconsumption and purchasing as little as possible, but at least recycling appropriately. Now, here's a handout that I could make available to you that I call the Dirty Dozen of curbside recycling contaminants. We'll just walk through this quickly. This is the outside columns are because the writing is too small to see, but and some of this I've already mentioned. No food particles on or in recyclable material. 2, no plastic bags or soft plastic wrapping of any sort in any coho toter in the waste corral. No plastic bags out there. The soft plastic goes into the mailroom bin, and that's going to be a part of the whole plastics slideshow that I'm going to do come January. So if you want to know more about soft plastic recycling, sign up with me for that. No materials held in plastic bags. Some people bring out their recycling in a plastic bag and throw it in the toter, and that's bad news. Don't do that. Empty it and then throw the plastic bag away, or if it's clean, recycle it separately. No loose shredded paper, and I think we've pretty much got a handle on that. There's a picture in the middle there of the wrapped up bag. Some of you have seen that from the mailroom, that we want to put the shredded paper into a bag and tape it shut so that it doesn't just flow everywhere and gum up the machinery. No hazardous waste, of course, no non-recyclable plastics, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. No caps on glass bottles or jars. I mentioned this a few times because it's important to separate elements, and when most of the caps on glass bottles are either tin or metal, and it's just a hassle for the industry to deal with them. You need to separate elements. No sealed containers with a quantity of liquid in them. For instance, oil. Some people are putting, jars or containers of cooking oil in the plastic recycling. They can be sealed and put in the landfill, which is where they would belong. No ceramics or non-recyclable glass. I'll get into that a little bit more later as well. No insulated paperboard containers such as milk cartons and ice cream cartons and anything that held frozen foods. No shelf life, often called Tetra boxes that are rectangular in shape usually. They don't have to be refrigerated, but they can hold liquids for a long time, soups and juices in particular. A very popular container because it can be shipped very easily in big trucks and such, and it sits on shelves for a long time, but it's made of too many liners. The diagrams in the middle there, the two on top of each other there, show you how many layers of plastic are on each of these kinds of insulated containers that just make it impossible to either recycle or compost. They have to be landfilled. And then no plastic hot or cold cups in the, especially the hot cups that people are often putting in paper, because they look like they're paper, but they have plastic in them, and the cold cups do as well. Different types of plastic. All right, moving right along. We're not alone, of course. There's recycling globally is an issue, and there's a Bureau of International Recycling, which I never realized, in Belgium, and they've got the same kind of challenges that we have. It's really a trade federation uniting the world's recycling industries, but they're trying to get momentum going toward UN recognition of a global recycling day, which would be a great advance, I would think. So the Bureau of International Recycling, and here's some of the zero waste efforts and logos from other countries. And many of these countries, I have to say, as far as I can tell, are in some cases doing a much better job than we are and moving towards zero waste, like Denmark in particular. But there's a global effort to try to correct this. So don't feel alone or isolated by this, and it's going to reach a critical mass soon, I hope. Right now we're still going upstream with it, but it may even get worse before it gets better in the U.S. But there's a large scale movement growing around this. Even the National Security Agency, which I lived near before we moved back to the Northwest in Maryland there. And I've been inside the National Security Agency actually to lead a ceremony or be part of a retirement ceremony for one of the congregation members. They had a dunk. The dunk was their mascot, and they had this on their website. It's unclassified material, just in case you're worried about me stealing things from the National Security Agency. Don't tell anybody. And our neighbor to the north is on it, Vancouver, where Barbara was working for a year, half-time, and spending a lot of time up there. And I would go to visit her, and they have an incredible ambition to be the greenest city, and that's comes down from the top, from the municipality. And they use the inverted pyramid, which you see a lot, to have a zero waste approach, which emphasizes the biggest slice of that pyramid is to avoid waste, avoid purchasing undue amounts of materials, reduce the use of what you have to buy, reuse what you can, and then you get to recycle, and lastly, dispose. So that's the kind of angle that we want to take to avoid as much as possible and recycle at the last if we can't reuse and repurpose these things, whatever they are. Now, I was born in Wisconsin. I grew up in New Jersey, but I was born in Wisconsin, and I didn't know they had a mountain range in Wisconsin, but maybe it's not quite a mountain range then. Yes. Okay. Anyway, then we had a table the master composters and recyclers did at the one of the Bellingham Bells baseball games a couple of summers ago, and Dinger, the mascot, showed up and scratched out in the big hamster paw on our sign-up sheet that said that Joe Martin Field should recycle more, which is really true. They do a terrible job there. Hopefully, when they reopen again, maybe next summer, hopefully they will do a better job, because the recycling at the field for the baseball games was horrible. Okay, so Sanitary Service Company, SSC, is our pickup group. They are very responsive, and they have an incredible website that I've learned a whole lot from, and I recommend it for you there, ssc-inc.com. And they have a whole, you can ask them questions. They've got, a lot of information on there about what they will pick up, or how they recommend you recycle things. And the P tag, you'll hear me say a lot, and maybe you might even now better understand what P tag means. It's the plastic, tin, aluminum, and glass, the rigid plastic. P tag toters are the ones on the right, to the right of the paper, mixed paper toters. And so that where we can combine plastic, tin, aluminum, and glass, as long as we keep the paper separate. This is very different than Seattle and Portland and other municipalities that have what they call single stream. And maybe some of you used to live in a place where there was single stream recycling. Ooh, so convenient. Well, the industry will testify that those single stream recycling containers get so contaminated so quickly by the paper, and the paper gets stuck on things. It gets wet. It gets just caught up in everything, and it just reduces the value of recycling left and right. So that Seattle and Portland and other places are having trouble finding a market now for their recycling, because it's so contaminated, because the consumers have this very convenient way of putting it all in the same bin. But we do it differently here, and you'll see some more about that in a minute. So let's go into some of the particulars of the P-tag containers. The toters, the plastic containers, the hard plastic, the rigid, we call it. These are the things that are good to put in there: bottles, jugs, caps and rings, jars, tubs, lids, and buckets up to size 3 gallons. None of these 5 gallons ones. Those have to be either broken down or recycled separately. They don't take them. All the colors and numbers are okay. We want to remove the lids and the caps, especially on the hard, the metal ones, or the hard plastic ones. If it's a jug, that like the milk jugs there, the gallons and half gallons, you want to flatten it if you can, step on it, and then replace the cap. For some reason, they like to have the caps back on. And that's a picture. I tend to do it sideways. I stand on the jug sideways and flatten them. It takes up a lot less space in the trucks as well. And the things that you don't want to put in these plastic in the P-tag toters are hot beverage cups, dispenser pumps, and I saw a lot of lotion containers and spray bottles that still had the pumps in them, and unfortunately, the pumps are not recyclable. The containers are, so we need to unfortunately landfill the pumps. Any kind of foam you don't want in there. You don't want tableware utensils of any sort, even if they look like they're plastic. They're not recyclable. Any soft film plastic is no. It's hard plastic that we want in there, not soft plastic. Toys, insulation, paper. Plastic containers that held potentially hazardous materials like antifreeze. Even if it's rinsed out, they don't want it. It's just too much danger with the hazardous materials. The blister packaging is interesting. They can't really recycle the plastic that is firm. It feels like it's rigid, but it's been particularly crushed around particular things like batteries, toys, toiletries, ink cartridges, etc. For some reason, that's not recyclable. It was more relevant earlier in the month, early in last month, the corrugated plastic yard signs, which we didn't have a whole lot of. They don't want them either. And they don't want dark plastic, especially the plant pots. Now, those plant pots and trays, if they are reusable, Gigi has a place that she takes them. So put them under the stairs by the hot tub. You'll see a collection of them there already, usually any time of year, maybe fewer in the winter time, but especially in the spring when you're using those kind of plastic plant pot trays. Don't recycle them, and don't even trash them. If they're reusable, put them under the stairs for Gigi to bring to a friend of hers who reuses them. And here's a particular hint about rigid plastic in the best practice way. If you're shopping and you have to use plastic, always choose items in clear or white containers, because they can be recycled much better than dark colors and dark plastic. Black are very difficult to recycle and have a much lower value. So choose the clear plastics and avoid the dark plastics whenever you can. All right, to the T now in P-tag, tin and TNA, which here stands for tin and aluminum. It's very simple with that. You just rinse them clean. And if there's paper labels and you can get them off, that's so much the better. If you can crush them, so much the better, but it doesn't matter that much. If you're not into crushing tin, which isn't everybody's cup of tea, that's okay. Take the paper labels off if you can. But you don't want to put these in plastic bags. You don't want to put aerosol cans in there or containers or foil with food residue. You can put aluminum foil in there, but it's got to be clean. No food residue. Moving right along to the G in PTAG, which is glass. And all colors of glass is okay. Again, emptied and rinsed clean, which is pretty easy to do usually, unless it's an oil container, glass oil container. You want them loose, not in cases. Beer bottles, for instance, that people collect at a party. They put the beer bottles back in the case, and then they just throw the whole case in the recycling. But that's cardboard and paper. There's no business being in there. So that the bottles have to be loose, and you separate the lids and the tops, as I mentioned earlier. You don't want mirrors or bulbs, light bulbs. You don't want dishware of any sort or any kind of window glass. And you don't want food residue. And corks are an interesting story, because I saw a lot of wine bottles in there with the corks in them still. You can't recycle the corks, but they can be both composted and repurposed. The natural ones can be composted. The plastic ones have to go into landfill if you're not repurposing them. And so repurposing corks is actually kind of fun. People have been very creative, and you can look on the World Wide Web and see all sorts of crafts and things that creative ways people have reused corks. Maybe you've seen some of these kinds of things out there. So have some fun with the corks, save them, and then glue them together or put pins in them and things to hold them together into various things. They make great gifts even. I love the doormat idea. That's fantastic. Anyway, so that's called repurposing and upscaling, to take, instead of the downscaling, which is upcycling. It is upcycling. Instead of recycling, you upcycle into something even more valuable.
Jaco,
Yes.
you might be about to say this, but what if I break a glass bottle?
Well, for us, they don't want at curbside. They don't like to have the broken glass because it's handled. And our toters, it's not as big an issue because they have a truck that they just wheel the toter over, and it gets picked up by the arms and and dumped into the truck, and it all breaks there anyway. But curbside, they don't want broken glass because it's a danger to the handler. But our broken glass is okay. You just don't want to. You don't want to put broken mirrors or other kinds of broken things that shouldn't be in there anyway. And here's an example of a regular flaunter in our PTAG. Somebody who likes Topo Chico water is constantly putting it in there with the lids on, and has missed all of my previous messages about this, so it's still happening. All right, mixed paper. Moving right along, the do's of mixed paper, pretty obvious. All these kinds of things that go in there: shredded paper, sealed in a bag. If you can flatten your paperboard boxes there at the bottom, cereal boxes and cookie boxes and crackers and such, so much the better. Not essential. It just takes up less room, and they can make less trips. It's just sort of an economy issue for them. But what you don't want are any plastic or plastic coated paper. And sometimes people they get a piece of mail or a catalog or something that is enclosed in plastic, and they just toss it in the paper recycling, and that's not good. That's plastic. We don't want any plastic in the paper recycling bin. You don't want to put milk cartons or hot cups in there, even though they look like they're paper and paperboard, because they have plastic in them. Coated food packaging, like much of the frozen food, it's hard to tell exactly. But again, if you're in doubt, throw it out. And nothing with food residue, like pizza boxes. I'm finding pizza boxes are more in the cardboard dumpster than in the paper toters, but it doesn't belong in either of those places because it's got food on it, and it goes into the Food Plus, which can handle cardboard with food on it. Speaking of cardboard, it's a very strong fiber that gets recycled a lot, and it's very valuable, actually, although the price of it's going down too, unfortunately, for the recycling industry people. There are some municipalities like Vancouver to the north of us who have banned cardboard from local landfills. And if they see you dumping it, they will fine you for cardboard dumping in the landfills, because cardboard recycling saves trees, water, electricity, and reduces your carbon emissions. So it's a great thing to recycle. We really only recycle corrugated cardboard, which has that wavy edge to it, which you can see when you tear on it. We'll get a little bit more into that. It wants to be clean with a minimum of taping. They can handle some taping, but if it's a whole lot of taping, it's better to toss it in the landfill. It needs to be broken down, especially in ours, so that we can get by with one pickup a month. That's just the main reason, although it's easier for them in their trucks as well. But broken down does not mean flattened. I mean, it does mean flattened, but it doesn't mean stepped on kind of flattened, because stepping on it is very inefficient and doesn't do the job. And the corners stick up and it still takes up too much space. So use a knife or a blade of some sort and slit the edges and flatten it like you see there. And you don't want to put waxed cardboard in there. Waxed cardboard can actually be composted and sent to Food Plus. It takes up a lot of room in the toters if it's a big box of waxed cardboard, but if you can cut it up, it fits better in there. You don't want the food residue cardboard, such as the pizza boxes, and you don't want paperboard. Paperboard goes into the mixed paper. I was constantly pulling cereal boxes and things out of the cardboard dumpster, because it's not corrugated. So what paperboard, how do you tell the difference between thin paperboard and corrugated cardboard? And it's important because they are both recycled separately. So you want to keep the corrugated cardboard separate from the mixed paper. So paperboard, you may have seen this, I did this once at a general meeting, a few of these slides. If you tear the edges of paperboard, it's thin and it's just layered like that. And it goes into mixed paper. All these kinds of boxes are paperboard, but corrugated cardboard has these rippled edges, the wavy edges, and that goes into the cardboard. So there you are. If you've learned nothing, maybe you've learned how to tell the difference between paperboard and cardboard. But where does it all go, you might wonder? Where does it go from our toters? So it mostly goes, except for the Food Plus, all the recycling pieces go into Northwest Recycling, Parberry's. They've been family-owned business there at C Street and Holly, just off of Holly on C Street, since the 20s. They started by recycling the first of the cars that were being produced finally into the early part of the 20th century. And they've expanded and have quite a going operation there. Although they are selling their business, it's sort of in process right now. We're not quite sure what's going to happen. They're going to stay there, as far as I can tell, and continue the metal recycling. But I think they're trying to sell off their recycling aspect, and that's a little worrisome. Unfortunately, recycling, what they call MRFs, materials recovery facilities, are going out of business every day in America right now, because they have no place to sell their recycling anymore, mostly because it's so contaminated. So it's a little iffy. We're hoping that they're going to be able to survive. They're good folks there, the Parberry family. They condense these things. They crush them into these. This is aluminum. Borgian cubes that get shipped away, and paper gets crushed together. Here's Marty Kuljas, the amazing helpful manager there, standing in front of the hard plastic that gets dumped outside before it gets sorted. And you may have seen this article in July of 2018 that as I had mentioned, our separation of paper from the PTAG has given us a real advantage. And Marty still has clients to sell to. The prices are going down, but he still has people who will take our recycling, because it's much less contaminated than many other municipalities. And China is no longer a place that we can send our recycling. You may have heard about that too. That's a whole nother story, but it's been a real reckoning for our country to try to figure out what to do with our recycling, because of China's closing their borders to basically anything that has any contamination at all. I mean, they used to accept 15% contamination, then it went down to 5%. Now it's 0.5% of what they will accept. And that's almost impossible to meet. Ours even is at 1%, according to Marty. Well, all right, from Northwest Recycling, where does it go? You might wonder. Um, the mixed paper and newspaper goes out to Wenatchee area in particular for it to become liners in fruit boxes and trays. The corrugated cardboard goes to paper mills to become more cardboard because it can just be, maybe not indefinitely, but it can be really, really reused, and it just gets you don't have to use virgin wood to create more cardboard when you're recycling it. The PTAG things, the plastic containers, are shipped off to processors such as in the East, Vietnam and Malaysia in particular right now, that get to make more plastic. Unfortunately, there's some real, in my plastic slideshow, I go into a lot more about what happens and what can happen around plastic. So stay tuned for that. And the steel mills take on the tin, including Nucor Steel down in Seattle, to make rebar and other similar metal projects. Aluminum is a very strong success story. Our real aluminum gets shipped by train to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, if you believe it, and it becomes more cans. And Marty says that from the time it leaves Northwest Recycling, that aluminum is back on the shelf with liquid in it in a month. It's an amazing process, and aluminum just gets recycled over and over again. So I wish there were more things that were available in aluminum. Glass goes to places like Strategic Materials in Seattle to produce more glass. Glass is not indefinitely recyclable or remakeable, remanufacturable, but it can be done many, many times. And you see there's the PTAG acronym again. The Food Plus stuff, the food compost and paper and other things, go to Green Earth Technologies, just there up the road off Hannigan Road, south of Linden. Amazing place. I've been on 2 tours up there. They have these huge, long composting piles that can get up to 170 degrees, and they have a 3-month cycle, which has its pluses and minuses. It's amazing. They turn this stuff into compost so fast. They have these Gore-Tex covers with vent holes with steam coming out of them, and the air that circulates from underneath. There's vents that come up underneath them with air from under. It's just a really phenomenal process up there. And they really invite you to recycle or compost various things, including paper. People don't realize how much paper, you want to recycle paper with the mixed paper if it's clean, but if it's soiled at all, including paper towels, paper tissues, napkins, those kinds of things can totally be can be composted, and should be, certainly instead of landfilled. And then all kinds of food, including bones and pits and things that we don't want in our local composting. But no plastic, no metal, no glass. And they say, and they're posters that you can put in these cups there, see, but I have it from Stephanie, the head of the Green Earth Technologies, that they really don't want these plastic coated cups and tableware, because their cycle of that it takes them 3 months to compost it is not long enough to digest the even the things that are called recycle or compostable. They just don't have enough time in their cycle to really break down these corn, say, based tableware. And the plastic, there's a whole, if you really want to know more about the plastic controversy, I can tell you, but SSC is not altogether nuanced in their presentation. So they want to encourage people to use the Food Plus program, and you have to pay extra for it. So it's a choice that people make. It's not like the recycling that you can do it for free. So they're trying to improve the odds that more people will take part in it, and they're afraid that if they do say, like we do, not to use these, that people will stop, including the schools in particular, because this also means containers, milk containers, cartons of milk and such. But Stephanie says they really don't want them. So from residences, they prefer that you don't put that stuff into their Food Plus.
Jaco?
Yeah.
So those corn-based utensils,
Yeah.
should they be just thrown in the landfill?
Well, I had a conversation in my class the other day with Unitarians about, well, yeah, they will compost and they will decompose eventually. And so somebody made the suggestion, which I thought had some wisdom to it, which was to just bury them. somewhere. Put them underground, and they'll just over time. And you don't bury them in a place where you're planting things necessarily, but you dig a hole somewhere and bury them, and it keeps them out of the landfill. And it's a different kind of landfill. It's your own landfill. So if you want to pay extra to buy them to begin with, the best thing is to really to avoid them and avoid plastic tableware of all sorts by buying your own reusable portable silver or tableware. And we have a set in the glove box of our car, and when we go places and we suspect they might be giving us plastic tableware, we bring out our own. It's a little nice. They make for great gifts. In fact, to give people, they really condense. They slip together in a nice little pocket, and then you just wash them and reuse them. So that's the better thing to do with those. And the corn-based ones are expensive, but they're not compostable. Not here. Now, if you're living in Seattle, the Cedar Grove composting facility down there is huge. It's 5 times the size, I think, of ours here, because it's a bigger city, and they have capacity to handle things like some of these things, and they have a special process and whatnot. But here, we're not a big enough population to support that kind of depth in the composting industry. So unfortunately, it's no go.
You want to comment on egg cartons?
Yes, egg cartons. They're either they are already made of recycled materials. That's part of what they make out of paper, mixed paper, and they can be recycled with the mixed paper again if you want. They can also be composted. I actually collect the tops of egg cartons, the paper egg cartons, and I shred them and use them in our Comptown hot composting. So I'm repurposing them into a deeper compost mode, but either way is okay. That answer your question?
I thought somebody had
We're almost done. We're just about done here. So I'm going to be able to take questions and answers here. And I just want to point out that there was a poster contest at the College View Elementary School down in Seattle, and this third grader won first prize with this wonderful poster, "Put Waste in Its Place." So that's what I wanted to end with. And thank you very much for your good attention and your efforts. And now I will stop screen sharing somehow. I can't get out of this. Let's see. Oh, whoops. There we go. Okay, there we go. We're back. Whew. All right. So that was a lot of listening to me, and now I'm happy to take questions and go a little bit deeper. We've got another 15 minutes or so. Or if there's no questions, we can just get on with our evening. But if there are, let me know. Anybody?
So I thought the egg cartons couldn't be recycled in the regular paper.
Oh yeah, they can. They are. That's what they're made of. Was mixed paper to begin with. Why did you think that?
I thought that there was a limit to how many times they could be recycled, and that they should go into food plots.
I think, yeah, paper is not indefinitely recyclable. It's true, and it may be. That's just one of the finer points that I don't bother with, because there's just too much to try to figure it out. It's probably okay to. It's probably maybe the best practice is to put them in the composting. Yes, I think the best practice is to reuse them however you can. Myself, repurpose them, but it doesn't hurt, I don't think, to go into the paper. Yeah, Carol.
Becky, if the egg cartons are in decent shape, if you stack them on the shelf in the mailroom, I'll take them and recycle them with the woman that delivers eggs to me.
Right. That's a great way to do it. Yep.
I have a question about what is the significance of the little symbol on the bottom of a plastic bottle, the little triangle?
Yes, they're about to go away, as I understand it. The recycling industry attempted to educate people with that symbol and the numbers in the chasing arrows, it's called. And it has failed miserably. It's just confusing people. And there are technical differences. And ultimately, the people who sort this stuff out, sort out the plastics, for instance, they might pay attention to those, because there are differences in the kinds of plastics that are numbered differently. At our level, what SSC says is all numbers. Just you can put all numbers in there, and there are technical differences that I haven't gotten deep into myself, even because it's kind of overload, of trying to do that. So they're trying to simplify things, and it's a huge job, and the plastic industry is not helping any. If you come to my plastics slide deck, you'll see all manner of material about the big plastic and how what they've been doing to obstruct, even though they make a lot of greenwashing efforts to recycle downstream. They want to push it all downstream make it all on the recycling, and not take no accountability for themselves for the production of all this plastic, which they're gearing up like crazy. Petrochemicals is the saving grace for the oil industry right now. Anyway, don't get me started on that, but it really doesn't matter. Just put them all into the P tag, and I don't know, that's not very helpful, maybe, Kelly, I'm sorry, but it's not been a successful campaign. And you can look on the web and find out all the particulars about it, and also the controversies. Gigi, yeah.
Just want to say that if anybody puts plant pots under my stairs, I am taking them to a place where they are reused, not recycled.
Mm-hmm.
So these are going to little mom and pop grow places here in the county, and to be the little mom and pop people, they have time in the winter to clean and start their new starts in them for the next year. Big companies don't do that, but little mom and pop people do. So you don't have to wash them, but kind of whack out the dirt and crud and stuff that's in them.
Yeah.
And if there's a big crack in the side, throw it in the landfill, because they can't reuse stuff, of course, that's broken.
Right.
So.
Well, that's a beautiful thing, Gigi, and thank you for that. We have a number of resources here at Co-Housing that many regular citizens don't have. T-Flow being another one who takes our soft plastic into the co-op, even though the co-op is not accepting soft plastic from the public right now. We got a back door that Tim carries our soft plastic in there with him when he goes to work. So, these are just ways of taking advantage of resources that we have. And so Gigi's a great link to that kind of system. Blessings on that. Yes. Other questions? Yes, there. Hi, Lori. You're muted.
You're muted.
There we go. Okay. What about, I've always wondered about like vitamin bottles. The plastic looks different to me.
It isn't. It's totally recyclable. There is a wonderful, I'm on Pinterest, right? It's one of the few social media things I do. And I just plugged in that I like zero waste stuff. And so I recently discovered a whole cottage industry about repurposing of pill bottles.
I've used them with my students a lot, but my teaching.
That's the thing to do. They can be recycled, but they're also
What about the lids?
And
what about the lids?
Yeah, well, either use them or not. Well, one of the things I saw, for instance, I can't get at it right now, I'd show you, is a diagram of how you can use a pill bottle for a key, a spare key to your house, or maybe your car or something, your house probably, and sink it in the ground and put a rock on top of it. So you know where it is, and then you just have to take the lid off and get the key out when you need it, and it's hidden in your garden or whatever.
Oh, that's very clever.
So, and there's all kinds of decorative things you can do with them too.
Yeah,
but
they're great for shake like a maraca.
Oh yeah, sure. I've got a whole handout on zero waste that I debuted last Thursday, 2 days ago, actually, with the last of my classes on towards zero waste. A whole upcycling 3-page handout. If anybody wants, let me know, and I'll send that to you. It's a PDF at this point that diagrams a number of those things and gives a lot of websites for what to do. There's a great website called Trash is for Tossers. It's full of ideas, and there's even a website that coordinates all the websites for zero waste that have all these ideas, amazing ideas. And Pinterest, just just raise your head above the sight line on Pinterest for zero waste, and you'll get all kinds of posters and links to all kinds of creative stuff that people are doing to repurpose materials instead of putting them in the landfill.
Thank you.
Carol again, yes.
Did you happen to see, or were you around when Kathy was collecting toilet paper rolls?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that works out beautifully for her.
Well, and
It's a lovely screen.
Catherine does amazing things with recycled materials in her artwork. And those are kind of creative stuff to do. There was a time back in the 70s, I think, when I was drinking a lot of orange juice, and I hated to buy the jugs of orange juice, and so I bought the frozen, canisters, which had these lids, these metal lids that were perfect circles. And I'm saying, these things got to be good for something. So I saved these lids months after months, years. I'm saving. I had so many of these darn lids in boxes, and I never figured out anything to do with them. And I moved one time, and I had to give them away because it killed me, but I had saved them all because they're perfect circles. They must be good for something. And I'm just not creative enough to figure it out for myself. But there wasn't the web back then. Or I could have probably found somebody who would tell me what to do with these darn things.
Anyway. I've used them for years. I mean,
Yes.
I give my students recycled materials, and they just go crazy over recycled materials, and what they invent is just so amazing.
Well, we're really called into that mode in bigger and bigger ways. And I think back to my grandparents, and my parents were kids during the Depression, but my grandparents were struggling. And the kind of wisdom that emerged under the stress of the Great Depression was so creative and forced creativity in harsh ways, certainly, but that wisdom of canning and even from old farm life and the people that really had to get by with less and did, and those kinds of skills are hopefully going to be recovered more and more, and we are called into that mode right now in a big way, I think. And so that's why the zero waste movement is our sort of our platform at this point to really start to learn and do things in our own backyard and in our own sort of acting locally way that are more a part of the solution than the problem. So I'll get off that soapbox. Any other questions?
Gigi,
yeah, sure.
I noticed, not this year, but last year when I was going to the farmer's market, that on their Food Plus toters, they had signs that they could use the cornstarch utensils and stuff. And everybody there had agreed to only use that kind. But you're saying they have to go to a special place.
Well,
that they can't do it here. Where were they going from the farmer's market?
Well, they were probably going up there to the. It only goes one place. The city composting all goes up to Green Earth Technologies, and they have to dedicate staff time and a process to separate out the things that don't decompose. And they would just as soon not have to do that. However, the campaign to improve participation in Food Plus is a political effort that is trying to get more people to sign up and to also keep the schools signed up. And the fear on the part of both Green Earth Technologies and SSC is that if they got really strict about what you couldn't put in there, that people would stop using the whole idea, and especially the schools, because the milk cartons are huge in schools, of course. So they are kind of have a devil's bargain, and they're willing to dedicate the staff time to separate out the plastic that doesn't decompose at the end of the composting process. But they just as soon not, if they could avoid that. So the nuanced message that I'm giving, because I'm not SSC, I'm saying let's not burden them with any more of that than we need to. And SSC is not nuanced about it. They're just saying one thing to the whole public. They don't want to change their story and they just put it out there. So and they're a big part of what's doing these demonstrations, so that's their party line essentially. Yeah, Leslie.
And another thing that doesn't break down in 3 months is those green compostable plastic bags, because when we buy compost from Green Earth Technology, I find little shreds of that green plastic bag. So if you can put your compost in a paper bag, it's better if it's going in the food waste toter.
Yeah.
Or in a metal container that you just dump out and wash.
People have figured out that they can charge more for these so-called compostable green bags, and so there's a lot of less ethical companies producing these lovely green bags that they say are compostable, and ultimately they might be compostable in a larger system that had more time. What Stephanie up at Green Earth Technology, and she's like the director up there, she came to our class and I've been on tours with her up there. She says that there's a rating, and there is an AST, American Standard Technology rating, that that some green bags will actually compost in time. And the key number, if you're interested in, and if you're buying these things, is 6,400. And there's an AST 6,400 rating on bags that are in fact compostable. But there's a lot of green bags out there that aren't, that don't have that number on them, and those are the ones that get stuck in the process, unfortunately. So it's complicated, but there's people trying to take advantage, just like using the word natural, all that. There's greenwashing galore out there. So that's the way you just got to try to be heads up and do the best you can. And I really believe we're all doing the best we can, and we'll get better at it if we keep trying. And that's all that you can ask for. And so, you win some, you lose some, 2 steps forward, 1 backward. It's a moving target. The recycling industry is struggling right now, but we still got to be the change we want to see, and step forward into a more positive future that hopefully is going to reduce. And also to follow the call to any kind of action that is legislative. And if we get my plastic slideshow, we'll give you some of the paths to. The slideshow is called the plastics one is called Plastic Pollution and the Paths to Solutions. And some of the solutions are legislative, some of them are activist, protest oriented, getting in the face of big plastic. There's a lot of actions that are out there that people are called to, and that's important work as well. So if anybody feels like they want to write letters or just discover more ways to plug into the people there's a lot, and the plastic slideshow will give you all manner of organizations that are doing great stuff to clean up and actually prevent. There's a whole new plastics circular economy revolution that's emerging. That's very encouraging, but it's looking for traction right now. So the more traction we can give it, the more it's going to take hold and get us to a critical mass sooner than later.
I have to go, but thank you so much.
All right. Well, it's 5 o'clock. I
Thank
see.
you.
Unless there's anything else, I'll let you all go. Anybody else has closing words or comments or questions? Last chance.
I appreciate that. I've learned a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
thank you, and thank you, Jaco.
Yay.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
carry
you
on,
a
y'all.
lot.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
coming.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.